Hey, so let me introduce you to Laura. Unfortunately, there are some very common mistakes that are happening with Laura's hair right now, and well, they are robbing a little bit of the youthfulness from her. So today, in this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly what those mistakes are, but more importantly, some pretty straightforward and simple fixes to address them. But much more importantly, not only am I going to tell you what I would suggest to address them, I'm also going to show you visually what those suggestions would actually look like and how they would impact Laura. Yeah, all of that. And you're probably going, why is it so loud where you are right now? Well, it's because of that. Yes. My name is Justin Hickox. I've been doing hair since 1995, and I prefer to take you on adventures while I teach you about hair because it's just more fun than being in a salon, to be honest. But today, those adventures brought me out to a raging river, I guess. All right, well, hey, let's dive into the mistakes. Before we do that, let's change the backdrop so I don't get everyone yelling at me for how loud things are. Okay, let's do that now. Okay, this is a little bit better, not quite as ridiculous. Stream versus torrential, crazy river waterfall, I guess. There you go. Okay, anyway, so for the very first mistake that we're seeing now, this is a very common mistake. This is something that I have actually talked about in other videos when we're dealing with longer hair, but it's even more pronounced when we deal with shorter hair. And that is that the layers on top are simply too short for the rest of the length, meaning the length on the sides, etc. Usually why this happens is because people are trying to create more volume on the top. So you feel like, hey, if I want to get more volume, I need to take the hair shorter because it's too heavy and laying down. And it's true, you actually do, as you can see here, get volume right on the top. But the problem is there's not enough length to actually create bend and true volume and shape in the areas where we need it. So if you look at this photo, you see that it divot right here around the temples. Now, the more important part about that is it also creates then the illusion that there's more fullness on the sides. So it actually just draws more width to her cheekbones instead of accentuating cheek structure. If this has happened to you in the past, I see this happen a lot of times in the salon, and the reason for that is because if you're seeing a stylist that maybe isn't far enough in their career or confident enough in your trust in them or their ability to gain your trust in them, if you tell them many times, I want more volume, so we need to take the top shorter, because in theory that would make sense and that's what you think, maybe they either don't know or they don't have the confidence to say, hey, that won't work. Even though you want to create more volume, we actually need the length to get that volume. Now, the second mistake actually compounds the first mistake a bit, and that is that the bangs, there's just a bit too much and they're a bit too square, meaning they're a bit too straight across. Now, before we talked about how that indent actually creates a little bit more volume in the sides and therefore accentuates width in the cheeks versus cheek structure, these bangs being straight across emphasize the same thing. Now, this pulls away from jaw structure and emphasizes a little bit more cheek structure than we actually want, which then leads us into the third mistake. And this is kind of less of a mistake and more of a suggestion. Due to the illusion of the amount of fullness on the side and how much we're accentuating width in the cheeks, one way that we could actually combat this would actually be to grow the back out just around behind the ears a tiny bit. Creating a little bit more fullness right below the ears in the back will help to frame that jawline and create the illusion of a bit more jaw structure. This will help to even out the width in the cheeks and actually create the illusion of more cheek structure versus just cheek width. Oh, and actually while I'm getting all the bike ready and getting ready to head out to show you another view, I've had a lot of people actually say that they're not getting notified or they're missing some of this series. So, real simple little fix to that. Obviously, first of all, make sure that you hit the subscribe button, but also down there's a little bell. If you click on that little bell, you'll get notified every time I bring out a brand new video. Click that little bell and that should take care of you. All right, back to the suggestions. Okay, so now that we gave you the concerns, let's talk about what the suggestions I would make to address these concerns and show you how they would actually impact Laura. So the first thing we talked about, the first mistake, was having a little bit too shorter layers on top, and that was pulling some of that volume away from the temple area. So here's what it looks like if we add a little bit of length and get a little bit more volume in kind of the right areas. Now, as you can see here, it's a small change, but that change makes a massive impact. We start to actually accentuate cheek structure versus just accentuating cheek width. Due to the amount of volume in that temple area, it actually makes the sides appear as though they have less volume, and therefore the shape is a little bit more conducive to accentuating cheek structure versus just adding width. Now you can also see this dramatically in the profile. If we look at the back, kind of towards the crown of the head, creating a little bit more volume through there does the same thing. It really starts to draw that eye up and starts to lift the features of the face versus collapsing in that area and drawing the eye down. Now the next concern we talked about was that the bangs were a little bit too straight across and there's a little bit too much. So here's what it would look like if we removed some of those bangs and took them a little shorter on one side to open up that face just a little bit more. Now you can see this does the same thing. It relieves a little bit of that width in the cheekbones and actually accentuates cheekbone structure. Those are obviously two very different things. And if we look at the profile, it does a bit of the same thing. It opens the face up just a little bit more. Now in this front photo, you may notice that I actually alleviated a little bit of the bulk on this side of her hair right here around the ears. Now I did that just to accentuate a little bit more volume up towards the temple, which also helps to accentuate that cheekbone structure. Now this could be actually done very simply. It doesn't inherently mean that the hair has to go shorter. She could simply tuck this behind the ear a little bit more and just taper that down through styling. So now what happens if we add a little bit more length in the back? Even though we're not adding a lot of length, we're still getting a nice frame to the jaw, which is helping to accentuate a little bit more jaw structure and a little bit more face structure in general. Now, if you look at the profile, you recognize that even though we've added length and technically fullness to the nape, it doesn't mean that we're pulling the shape down. That can happen a lot of times if there's too much volume in the back. But in this particular scenario, because we've let the top get a little bit longer and created more volume in the crown, that volume can offset the amount of extra volume or length that we're adding, and therefore the eye is still lifted up as well as the facial features are still lifted up. There's one other thing that I saw that I wanted to throw in here, and this can kind of lead us into the curveballs, and that is that I'm not entirely sure if Laura is growing color out or transitioning more to gray, or if she's gray and there's just a little bit of staining on that gray hair, creating a little bit of a yellow tint to the very top. So what we've done here is gone through and just lightened this up a little bit, toning out some of that yellow. Now this can be achieved through purple shampoo, purple conditioner, or actually going in and having it toned at the salon. Now, what about the curveballs? Well, there are a lot of things that she can do, and here are a handful of shapes that I think would look fantastic on her. These are all shorter shapes. The reason I'm not showing you longer shapes is not because she couldn't wear longer. It's because I think that her face shape actually lends itself very well to short hair, and with the fact that the layers are too short, it leads me to believe that she's mentioned a concern of volume to her stylist at some given point, and therefore that's why that top was as short as it was. If you look at all of these shapes, you'll notice that even though they're different overall cuts in different lengths, the shape is the same. It's tapered in a little bit towards the ear, creates a little bit more volume in the crown. The bangs are not too strong. It's a very similar overall feeling to the modifications that we just showed you with Laura's hair. It's just on a shorter version. So yes, those are all of the things that I think would look fantastic. Well, there's more, but those are some of the things that I think would look fantastic on Laura. But the question is always, what do you think? I would love to hear your suggestions. So, do you think she should go short? Do you think she should just add a little bit more volume? What are your thoughts? Go ahead and comment below and let me know. And otherwise, I will see you in the next video. Have a great one and enjoy this lake. We'll see you next week. Hey, take care now. Bye.